I never plan my live stream, so I gotta give YouTube a little while to make it happen. Okay, that way I can see my chat. So, good morning, everybody. Coffee cheers to you. I hope that you are all doing well. I got one kid with a stomach virus, and my son is just bouncing around like Hercules. So hopefully, I gave him some soup and just hot stuff this morning, just to make sure that if there's any germs, we at least try to nuke them as much as possible. I like to throw the kitchen sink at any codes or viruses trying to go come through the house. So we pray. But nurse mommy, but other than that, it's interesting. I kind of, death has been on my radar this week in two ways. One being obviously the sensational news with the United Healthcare CEO being assassinated. And thank you so much, Savage One. Welcome to the chat. So one of the things that put death on my radar was the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO, and just all of the responses and kind of the shockwaves of that. And then one of my high school friends who was battling with cancer, she passed on. And it's interesting when people die, and I always say this. My mom always told me this too. She goes, we wouldn't care about death if it took the same person every time. You know what I mean? If Johnny died every day, we'd be like, oh, that's just not Johnny, like Kenny from South Park, right? But death doesn't work like that. It takes a different person every time, and the older we get, the closer death comes to us. And I realized that just being over 40, you start seeing people's parents die, and even people in your age group die. And you hear older people talk about death, so the phases of the reaction to somebody dying, it kind of comes in waves as you get older. When you're younger, death is shocking. It's a devastating thing. As you get older, it's one of those things that you accept as a commonplace in life. And then when you get much older, you're just kind of like, oh, you know what I mean? So it's like I'm looking at this high school friend passing on, and it's shocking to me, right? We're in our 40s, she's passed on. And but I can imagine that, as God willing, I go through my 50s and 60s, and I continuously hear about this person or that person that I went to school with pass on. The shock, and it's going to be different each year, because at that point, death is becoming commonplace to the human experience for the individual, right? But nevertheless, we can all agree that, Romans 6:23 tells us that the wages that sin pays is death. And we are all sinners. So we will all pay this wage someday, right? But there's another scripture that always comes to mind when people are talking about death and the life of an individual. And I was happening to be looking at Abba and Preach early this morning, and they were talking about the United Healthcare CEO, and how there's been this wave on the internet of people who are actually celebrating this person's death and actually feeling like this person deserved dying, right? And I think that that's a very interesting perspective for people to have. And it just shows you, just how what human is really like, in so many different degrees, because I don't celebrate anybody dying, but at the same time, there are circumstances where you have less empathy. You have less empathy depending on the person who's dying, right? I remember reading about wicked King Herod of the ancient days, and how he actually order, people to be imprisoned or even put to death because he knew he was dying, and he knew that the people hated him so much as a king that they were going to be celebrating his death, right? And it brings me to the scriptures at Ecclesiastes 7:1. And I think that, a lot of people, they don't think about things like this because we live in a culture where I don't care what anybody thinks about me, and who cares what people think about me, and I don't have to be accountable for my actions and or any of that stuff. But then when people are down to the wire, maybe they get gravely ill. Now they're looking for people to have empathy for them because they're in that state. But again, I always, we're all going to be judged by the measurements of what our deeds. And that's just bottom line. We will be judged by the measurements of our deeds, and because we're in God's image, we tend to judge other people by the measurements of their actions and their deeds as well. So there's a lot of people who believe that this United Healthcare CEO person was just absolutely wicked, and that somehow he deserved the fate that he had, and that, he doesn't deserve empathy, right? And I see YouTube, I'm like looking at this live stream, and it's like, I don't understand why it's not going here. Is it freezing? Because, like, I'm looking at it freezing. Let me refresh this and see. Because YouTube is good about censoring and suppressing content right now. Let me see. Okay. Is it freezing still? I was looking at it freezing, so I'm not sure. Is it freezing, you guys? Is it fair to judge people on inaction as well? I mean, definitely. I'm looking at the chat. I'm not sure if I'm free. Okay, there it is. I see it going now. But, I think that, when you look at people standing by and doing nothing when they clearly see something is wrong, then I think, yeah, they will be judged on their weakness, right? For their inability to stand up in a situation where it was right to do so, and they didn't because they were afraid of X, Y, and Z. And there's a lot of weak people in this world who just go along to get along because they don't want to ruffle any feathers in their lives, and they just want to be a compliant lemming. So, you judge people based off of those things too. And unfortunately, those types of people are in our governments, and they're lemmings to things that they don't necessarily believe in, right? But at the same time, they are complying, going along so that they can get along, right? Good morning, Brian. What's up, Ghetto Planet? Right? But Ecclesiastes 7:1, I want to get to this scripture. It says, a good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of birth. So, what we are being told in the scripture is that the day that we die is actually more significant than the day that we were born. Because what debts do a newborn child has? Who has a newborn child had the consciousness to piss off, right? So, when you're talking about people celebrating this person's death, right? You can look at it as humanizing. This man was viciously gunned down like an animal in the streets, right? And this person has a family and children. There's that side of it. And there's also the side of what he stood for, what he was about, and all of the families that were devastated by the actions of his company or the inactions of this company, right? Because, they're not really paid to care about anybody's family. They're not paid to care about if you're somebody's uncle, mother, brother, sister, child. They are not paid to care about those things. They're paid to push out policies. And many of them do not make good on those policies, and it hurts a lot of people And at the heart of such practices will always be the CEO, the company culture, what is being pushed to the company. And so this is why, I can see, this being one of those things where somebody lost somebody they cared about a lot, and they planned on finding some resolution to that by, he's like, I probably can't take on the insurance companies, I get eaten alive, but I can set the tone for how other people can deal with them. And this is how that person chose to do it. I'm not sure if the shooter himself was directly impacted by this company, or somebody who paid him was directly impacted by this company. But regardless, people are looking at the situation, and they're looking at the insurance companies, the health insurance companies in totality, right? And, it's making them feel less empathetic that this happened to this man, especially because he was at the top of the food chain at this company. And like I said, vengeance belongs to the Lord. I believe that. I don't believe that people should be going out, vigilante, like going out taking people's lives, right? But people get paid for all kinds of things. But at the same time, like I said, that man, he died with a bad name, because nobody is really quick to be empathetic about this man, whether he has a family, estranged wife, children, or not. They're not very empathetic. There's, in some respects on the internet, you see people who are celebrating that this man is no longer walking this earth. So, like I said, Ecclesiastes 7:1, it tells us that it's better to have a good name, right? Some people, they don't realize that, you walk around pissing people off, doing shady things, having all this broken valor in society. And then when something happens to your ass, you figure out how society really feels about you. That man was not loved. He was only loved by the wicked people, the people, not wicked, but the people who knew him, right? Close to him. Maybe they weren't familiar with how he did business, right? But, even wicked people are loved by somebody. Even wicked people are loved by somebody, right? And so somebody's going to mourn his ass. But as many people that are mourning him, there are way more people who are like, they don't give up if people like him do not exist on this earth anymore, because they have schemed against humanity in certain degrees. They have harmed other people who had full faith and trust in some kind of agreement, right? And they didn't care that they were screwing people over. They didn't care. So really, when people at the heart of the public doesn't have to care that this guy got shot down like that. And I don't agree with people celebrating that it happened to the man, but I definitely have zero empathy for the man because it happened to him. When you do wicked things, you get wicked consequences, and that's just what it is. So, um what are we talking about? Good morning. Oh, okay, thanks. You said trickle down from the top 100. What's going on, chat? I see you guys. Good morning, good morning, good morning. You can't be running around acting wicked. You just cannot be running around being wicked to folks, right? Because it's just it's not gonna work in the end. And I think a lot of people, I think even with, like, I saw something where when King Charles was, they're like, he's really sick and something like that. There were people on X and different little platforms, they were happy about it. They were hoping that he was gravely ill so that he could be out of the game. It's like, when people have a perception that you are a wicked, evil person, right? You know, a lot of times, the mindset is, oh, this person is suffering through ailment, or, they died. And like, really, I feel like sometimes they want society automatically to say, oh, that's sad, somebody died, right? But like I said, the other death that I had this week that I had exposed to was the high school friend, and you see all these tributes to this woman because she truly was a good person. She's been a good person for as long as I've known her, right? An organically good soul, an organically good person. She was not a schemer, right? She didn't live her life trying to figure out how she could get ahead by scheming, manipulating, or screwing over other people. And because she was so genuinely good to other people, there are people who are genuinely mourning her. Even people who have been removed from her and only just maybe follow her, like me. I mean, we've talked and chatted, randomly throughout the years on Facebook, keeping up with each other, but we weren't like tight, tight, tight like that. But you can see how people evolve. And she, to me, have evolved, and she evolved into the organically good person that I knew that she was. Right. And so that's why you have so many people who are mourning this woman. They're mourning her because she didn't obviously screw a whole lot of people over. And in these day and age, people, they have zero problem with telling you how they feel. They have zero problem in letting the devil get in them and have them tell you, yes, I'm happy that you're dead. You know what I mean? So, it's interesting, and I think it's just, every time people die, it's just a reality of life that, you know, when wicked people die, people really don't care. People really don't care at the end of the day, especially when you understand what they've been a part of, what they've done to other people. People don't have to care if they die. And, as much as I personally would not be celebrating their death, right? I wouldn't be mourning it either, you know? And that's just me. If the organization you lead is known to be wicked, does it matter if you are personally good? I mean, here's the thing, everybody has to align themselves with what they perceive is, not going to compromise their integrity. So, like for me, I always have like sector limitations, right? I know that there's a lot of money to be made in the healthcare industry, but me personally, I have a sector limit on healthcare. I don't want to work in healthcare. I never desired to work in healthcare. That was actually one of the sectors that I never, ever, 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 ever wanted to work in, right? I would work in automotive all day, industrial all day, right? But healthcare was like one of those, no, I don't want to work. I don't want to be a part of this sector, right? So for me, I know that with my skills and capabilities, I would be successful in healthcare. However, I don't want to apply my skills in that sector. I will sacrifice not making optimum money to be disassociated from a sector that I don't believe in. And so, you know, everybody has to make the decision that's best for them, right? It's like, I'm not saying that, people used to say, oh, don't be a lawyer because all lawyers lie. That's not true. That's not true. There are many lawyers who are willing to have integrity. The truth is the truth. They will investigate the truth, find out the truth, right? And they don't have to be running around operating with low morality and low ethics like some other lawyers who are like, I don't give a damn about the truth. It's all about winning. We're going to win this case no matter if we have to manipulate the truth, the reality, or not, right? So there's a difference. It's all about how people go about, the business, and it starts with personal ethics, personal morality. You know what I mean? So you could be a good person, right? But if you're in a industry that has very low morality, then you're always going to be in a compromised situation. You're always going to be at some point faced with a decision or doing something that doesn't resonate with your personal convictions. And that's just kind of how it works. You know what I mean? So, let's see. But moving on, I wanted to talk about 50-50 relationships. Let me go back because I was looking at this blogger and he was talking about a TikTok trend. And these women are, here we go. Let me go here. Can I go maybe my playlist? No, that's not what I want. Here it is. I guess there's a TikTok trend where these women are essentially saying that, they're filming their husband and they're saying, "Hey, I can't pay the mortgage this month." I'm trying to find that podcast. I just created it and saved it. Sorry. I don't understand. Why didn't that save? Like, it told me it saved when I saw it. Here it is. Boom. I hope this is the one. Telling my husband. Here we go. This is a video called "Telling My Husband That I Can't Pay the Rent." And this is a TikTok trend. And shout out to the Coffee Pod. She's that.
Mortgage this month. I can't even help. Don't ask for
So
nothing.
they're telling their husband that they can't pay the mortgage.
I cannot help pay the mortgage this month, or I can't pay it at all.
Baby.
But
I pay the bills, so.
He said, "I pay the bills."
yeah, I can't pay the mortgage.
No, honey. I pay the mortgage. You got another house or something you talking about?
No, I can't pay the
Look at his face. He's looking serious. Like, do you got another house or something? Like, what are we talking about here? You can't pay the mortgage. I pay the mortgage, right? Now, this is a series of videos on TikTok of these women filming their husband as they're telling their husband that they can't pay the mortgage, right? And these husbands are looking at these wives like, "What are you talking about? You never pay the mortgage. I pay the mortgage." And so I guess this is a campaign to take a stab at the women who are in these 50-50 relationships. They're in 50-50 relationships. And people have their opinions about that, right? And I look at things like this. If you are a couple and one person has a greater skill that allows them to bring in more income, significantly more income in some cases than the other spouse, then would a 50-50 relationship actually make sense, right? So, again, I'm a financial advisor. And so I meet people from all walks of life, people from, just getting started to people who are high net worth to ultra high net worth. And, I know a ultra high net worth guy, and his wife is not allowed to not do anything. She doesn't have to work. She just can't not do anything. She has to be able to do something every day, like in terms of, yeah, you're taking care of our daughter and you have to go and teach a class somewhere. You need to have a schedule every day. You can't just be hanging out at home all day long. So she has to do something, right? And so even down to tutoring, right? He paid for her schooling, so he's not going to hire a tutor to help tutor their daughters, right? she's going to do it, right? Like she has a job as he is the sole breadwinner for the house, right? And so that's her luxury to really just focus on being a woman and doing the things that, just really focusing on the business and the management of the house. That is a luxury, right? And there are a lot of women who are actually for this. And as he's going to say in this particular podcast, there was a lot of women in the comments who were like, "Girl, I want a man like that." Like the one dude, he was like, like this was the funniest one to me. Hang on, because she was talking. The woman, she came up to her husband and said the same line, and he was like, "It's taken care of, basically, but you basically have to do what you need to do for me." Here it is. Let me see. Telling my Lebanese husband I can't pay. No, that's not the one, but
Into the bedroom.
Pay the mortgage next month.
The caption of this one says, telling my Lebanese husband I can't pay the mortgage this month. Wait for it. Okay, sure. Want to pay it? Come to the bedroom.
he said, "You want to pay it? Come to the bedroom." So there are some people who have a problem with this. And I can't imagine why. I can't imagine why people would have a problem with 50, like a relationship that's not 50-50. And I'll go back to my point in a minute. I need 50-50 people doing that I can't pay the mortgage prank. You're right. But here's the thing. 50-50 makes sense when you have two individuals. Let's say one makes, let's say 40,000 a year, right? And the other one makes, let's just say 60,000 a year, right? So there's a $20,000 difference between their annual income, right? I would not expect for the guy, the man who's making maybe 60,000 to be paying all of the bills, right? Because in a household like that, you actually do need two heads coming together. It's always going to be better than one. It's a great inflation hedge when you have two people working in an income level like that. But there are some people who are like 250K plus a year, right? And maybe their spouse is only making like 60 or 80. To expect your spouse to pay 50-50 and you make significantly more than her would mean that somewhere there's no trust. There's a break in trust somewhere, right? And that, and there's also a hint of selfishness and a lack of leadership. So, I mean, what do you guys think about 50-50 relationships? I think they make sense depending on the economic level of a couple. I think if a household in total, the net worth is maybe below maybe 125K, right? Then I can understand that 50-50 dynamic, right? But if you're talking about a combined household income, of maybe let's just say 250K, and only 50K of that is coming from the other spouse. The other, I don't think the 200K person should be expecting for the 50K half to be putting in half on anything, right? So, and I really feel like this 50-50 thing is really for people who are not married. Like, I find that when you're married, it really don't go 50-50, again, unless there's a significant income difference between the two. A lot of times that 50-50 is going to come in other ways, right? And some of these men are saying your 50 is making sure that I'm going to pay the mortgage and you're going to get on your knees when I need you to. And it works for people like that. That's a great deal. That is a great deal. Like, I would take that deal. Like, ladies, take the deal, right? He's going to pay the mortgage. You just need to give him your marital dues anytime he wants. That's a great deal. I mean, I feel like it's better than being out here tricking. Some of y'all out here tricking from every Tom, Dick, and Harry, right? And y'all just giving him marital dues, and he don't even care about you, right? You might as well just find a dude that'll pay the mortgage, and all he's asking for is those things. It's not really a bad deal, ladies. It's not. All right. Anybody in a 50-50 relationship? Any men feel like they don't want to be in a 50-50 relationship? It gives them more leadership, capacity, not going there. What if you make close to 80 a year? What kind of house can I get? I'm not married, single. I mean, 80K a year is still a decent income. I think it's, excuse me. My sinuses, guys, sorry. I think 80 is a decent income. I definitely think, excuse me, my sinuses are going nuts this morning. But thank you, Brian. But I think 80K it's a decent income. But again, you got to think about what kind of house do you want, right? If you're talking about $1 million house, obviously you got some work to do, my friend, right? Like the underwriting is not going to be very friendly to you if you don't have at least, a reasonable down payment for that. I mean, I feel like everybody do what they want, but I always feel like, you can have more of a home and lesser of a home than some of these huge homes that people are buying to just stunt. You know what I mean? Like, who was I listening to? Was it Corey Holcomb talking about, these women, who have they got $1 million homes and they're expecting for men to pay their mortgages and stuff. And it's like, why the hell do you have $1 million home? You ain't got no kids and you looking for a man. You're looking for a man. That is like ridiculous. I mean, that's like keeping up with the Joneses gone wrong in so many different levels. Like, it's insane. It's tricks and simps who will give full coverage to women they aren't married to. I agree. A lot of women got that P power. They, the modern day harlot, they've learned to play the game like men. And they're like, shoot, you want my P power anyway, so let me just go ahead and trick you out of some money and give you what you want, and I'll give you what, and you need to give me what I want, which is portions for my rent. Like a lot of women, they pay rent with that PP. So to fill a void, I mean, there are some people, I had a friend of mine, and she's always like, you need to get out of your bubble. Like, I feel like I'm comfortably single. Like, I think people, like, I actually had a conversation on Facebook. I'm like, is there such thing as being, single for so long that you're just comfortably single? Like, and, a lot of people chimed in like, yeah. I mean, I think when you find your peace, you find your flow, your routine in life, right? You learn how to fill voids, you know what I mean? And especially if you have kids. But I feel like some people, their void is, I have to stunt. I have to show people that I'm happy. I have to invest in my happiness, and investing in people's happiness for some people is showing everybody how much I have, how I look achieve. It's like faking the funk for some people. Fake it until you make it, maybe. But oh my God, I feel awful. My daughter was sick yesterday, so I was taking care of her, and I'm just like, I felt like something's been creeping on the last week, but it's been like an off and on thing because the weather's changed. The Midwest has gotten really cold. And I think I'm just like sinuses, everything is just itchy, everything. So I apologize. But yeah, you said just gotta learn how to be loved by yourself, and that's yeah, we don't like I think that's true. I agree. I think some people they don't know how to find solace in themselves. But I think that part of that is because some people have not learned to find meaning beyond, some kind of group or herd mentality. So it's like with my kids, it's like, it's funny. Excuse me. Give me a second. Okay. Woo. Lord have mercy. I'm just like suffering over here. But like for my kids, for example, like when they're with their dad, it's like, I may hang out with friends, or I might just read a book. I might chill, clean, organize, listen to some music, kind of be in my zone, and I'm comfortable, right? And I always think about like the horror stories of today's dating world. You know what I mean? You see so many scenarios of people, these beta people, they are the main ones. You know what I mean? I almost hate dating apps because they're full of beta people with problems. And these people come off as like victims of life and other people, but really they're victims of themselves and their inability to go beyond their narcissism. You know what I mean? And they have very bad temperaments. Maybe somebody did not teach them, how to, you know, really be in tune with what somebody else wants and needs. You know what I mean? And so these people don't even know how to define what they want. Like usually if you're like dating somebody, for the like in the beginning, I think all the things that people claim are just too soon or you shouldn't ask in the beginning. I think, you should absolutely ask the very critical things in the beginning. And you can do it not in an interrogating way, but just conversational. What do you do? Right? How long have you been doing that? Right? Kind of get a gauge of what the career path has been for that person, the commitment and the passion level for something has been for them, right? Talk about the evolution of that person, right? How have you, like, what would you say, you've changed dramatically in the last 5 years? If they send up there like, oh, I ain't changed nothing, they're not a learning person. They're not evolving. They're not taking every life scenario and trying to learn something from it and become a better person. You know what I mean? Some people are just living life. You know what I mean? They're not trying to learn from living life. And so therefore they're making the same damn mistakes over and over and over and over again. They're victims of themselves and they will swear that it's everybody else in life but them. Right? So when you're dating people, I always say there is nothing wrong with making people put themselves on the table. Put yourself on the table. You tell me what you want from me, and I'll tell you exactly what I need from you, right? And if we put it on the table, right, there's no mystery as to what is going on with the intent, what the purpose is. But I think some people are just dating. They have no intent. They just don't want to be lonely. They're trying to fill a void, right? But they don't really understand how the other person is really feeling the void and what they need, from this void. You know what I mean? So it's a bunch of screwed up, sad people at the end of the day for me. And I think, being single is okay too. I mean, look at the demonic spirits of some people. Sometimes it's best to find peace. What did the Apostle Paul say? I'd rather be alone than sit at the table with wicked men. You know what I mean? So sometimes it's best to just find solace in good people, the word of God. And if you can't find those good people, just find solace in yourself in the word of God. You're never alone if you got God. That's what I say. You say you're a single father and your daughter said you stays with you. She's 12. Yeah, I mean, hey, shout out to the single fathers, right? We don't really give our single fathers enough love. And, they're out there. There's a lot of men, right, taking care of the children like women do. It's weird. It's actually, to me, it's so perplexing that we don't talk enough about the single father when we're in this age of hoe culture and women going out and bopping and doing whatever they want to do. You really don't hear about the men, especially the black men, that don't want their daughters exposed to that, so they are actually stepping up for their kids. The kids are staying with them so that they know where their kids are, while the mom is out there on the block just doing any and everything. It's crazy. I was listening to this one podcast, and there was a single mother talking about how many times a week she goes out. And, obviously the mother is watching the child, right? Raising the child, right? And it always befuddled me, even when I was younger, because I have a almost 20-year-old. And I was like, I would look at some of my peers and I'm like, how are you out on a block? It's Wednesday. How are you at the club? And I'm thinking to myself, like, either there's a balance that is off, or, there are some moms who really don't view momming the same way as, maybe people with more traditional mindsets. Like, there are some moms, they're like, okay, I'm a mom. I need to be there with my kid. I shouldn't be dropping, even, I think, down to even dropping the kids off to like the grandparents. It's like, you're still kind of pawning the kid off some kind of way. And I think kids really think about that. Like, and I think those are the kids that say, yeah, I didn't really have a good relationship with my mom. Why? Because a lot of times during that pivotal time in their life between, infancy and 8 years old, she was just not there to be that primary nurturer for those kids. And that's how you get a lot of men who hate women too, because they weren't nurtured the proper way, when they were young, because they had a mom who was selfish and was concerned about any and everything but them. It's sad. I really think some women become moms and gain a fear of being washed up. I mean, hey, here's the thing. Whether you're a mom or a hoe, something's going to wash you up. Whether it's running around with those kids trying to make them good humans, or going around on the block being every time Dick and Harry's cum rag, something's going to wash you up. It's just life. It's just really life. My daughter, she be in her room because that be her sanctuary. That's typical preteens. I mean, I was like that too. I mean, I think every preteen was like that. Your room was always your sanctuary, you know? And my mom, she was one of those people. It was a sanctuary to a point. My mom was one of those people, she didn't believe in knocking on the door. Like, there was no privacy in her house. It was like, I pay the bills. This is not your room. It is your room, but it's not. So, but she didn't believe in knocking on doors. She just believed in just walking in. There was no privacy in my mom's home. But I'm not like that. I mean, right now, it's like I have little kids, so they don't have privacy. But when my daughter was getting older, I gave her the courtesy of knocking on the door because, I mean, we do need to give our young adults the courtesy. Excuse me. Oh my gosh. I didn't want to be all working with my nose, but my sinuses are going nuts these days. But the 50-50 trend again on TikTok, I thought that was very, very interesting. I also thought that there's a liberal women's, I didn't realize this, but I was looking at Coffee Pod, and he did a podcast too about liberal women were actually running to get abortions before Trump won. Like they're, and even after, so they're like killing their babies. Like, whew, you guys know something is demonic when there's an inspiration to kill your babies, and it's so bad that this woman documented herself making her daughter or her friend an abortion cake, a termination cake, and it basically had her like this, like she was shooting a basketball, and there was a trash, and then there was the baby, and the baby was going in the trash, and that's how they were celebrating her friend's abortion. And I just want to kind of understand like this abortion feminist culture a little bit. Like, I thought that abortion was a resolve that women chose to make when they did not want to carry a child that they opened up their legs to create. But when did it become like a celebratory thing, right? And I'm listening to this lady. Let me see if I can find that blog. Because it's incredible to me. Here it is, celebrating death, and he did this
Burnout.
a couple
We
of
all
days
experience
ago.
it. It's
And I don't understand it.
Me getting my last deletion, she's talking about deletion, of a baby before Trump makes these laws change. So feminists are out here celebrating deletion of babies as a final hurrah before Trump takes office. Let's get it.
So she's at the abortion clinic celebrating that she's about to terminate a pregnancy before Trump gets into office, right? This is the demonic spirit that these women have. And she's just dancing. She's very happy that she's getting this abortion. But this was an interesting thing.
The chicks who are out here and actually think that this is something to celebrate about, right? I want to make that known. There's a different level in disgust here when you're comparing
She
how
got a
she's talking
whole
about
cake
it versus the woman making the cake.
You have a forced miscarriage, and then y'all cheering the girl. The girl literally right here blowing the candles out. Is this your friend? You just really made her look really silly. And then you put candles on it.
I want to go back to what she says in the beginning.
Talk about it.
So she goes and documents making this cake for her friend.
You tell me this is a joke, that this is not real. I know y'all reading what I'm reading.
It
This
says
cake clearly
it's a congrats.
says,
It's a
congrats.
boy.
It's a boy. No,
Well,
it's
no, it's a.
and not only did she make this,
And so basically, she is. I'm assuming this is a basketball hoop that she's throwing the baby in the trash. And this is what some of these people who are pro-abortion, this is their mindset, mental disposition. So when they're talking about rape and incest and all that stuff, right? That's the rare occurrences. What they're really talking about are whole culture people who don't want to be accountable. They have this green light, this path not to be accountable with this solution, right?
this cake, she had the nerve to show how she did it. Oh, let's talk about it. So first of all, she goes to the cake place. She buys the image that she created. She's doing the instructions on how to, get the image to stick to the cake. I mean, and not only that, hold up, let's go back. Not only that, you have somebody in the bakery, right? Congrats. I wonder what the person in the grocery store in the bakery was thinking when they created this. And so then you take it home, you cut out all the pictures because you have no remorse for what your friend has gone through. You have no idea what your friend has gone through, and you think the best thing to do for her is to illustrate a tragic, traumatic event in order for her to make herself feel better about what she just did. So you couldn't think of anything else. You couldn't take her and get her post-abortion counseling. You couldn't take
Okay, so this is the part of her rant that really bothered me because, obviously this person is celebrating with her friend, the fact that she made this decision, right? But this lady, she's, sort of criticizing what this woman is doing because she's like, why are we celebrating, having, these things, right? But
And take her and get her to speak to a therapist. You made a cake to celebrate this mess? Like, are you serious? And then you put candles on it, light the candles like it's a birthday. I mean, is the 7 candles representing how many she's had? Because I've had multiple. And let me tell you, it don't matter how many you have, it don't feel good.
so she said that she's had multiple abortions and it doesn't matter how many you have, it doesn't feel good, right? Like, and I guess my thing is one abortion is enough. Like if you've had to, like, my whole thing is if you're not really for abortion and you admit that this is a traumatic decision for a woman to have to make, why would you continue to put yourself in a position to have to keep making the decision? I mean, as much as I agree with her for scolding this woman and her friend for celebrating that decision, right? I'm also listening to you say that you had multiple abortions. It's a traumatic decision to have to make, right? And yet you've made it multiple times. So it's like, at what point are we not going to learn from our mistakes and be on the pathway to avoiding our mistakes? You know what I mean? And, it's just kind of perplexing to me that people would, talk about how traumatic it is, right? But then keep doing it. And, again, people make that decision for a variety of different reasons, right? And, my thing is, again, if you had to make the decision, I was with the wrong guy. He wasn't ready for this commitment. Maybe you weren't strong enough not to go through with it, right? You were afraid to, yeah, you were afraid to lose the guy or whatever decision you were forced to do it. You felt stressed. You made that decision. Okay, fine. It is up to the woman to say, okay, I never want to make a decision like this again. I never want to have to be in a situation like this again. How can I avoid that? Well, one way is keeping your legs closed. Another thing is practicing safe sex if you're just going to need to be engaged in having sex. I agree with you, Heaven. I mean, everybody is different. Everybody makes the decision in circumstance. And my thing is, my issue are the people who keep making the decision. This woman is clearly saying that she's had multiple abortions, but yet she's talking about how traumatic it was. Like, make it make sense.
One feel good, not the procedure in the actual clinic, the surgical one, and not the medical one either.
All right, let me say this. I respect the non-celebratory approach to this more than the chicks who are out here and actually think that this is something to celebrate.
Agreed.
This is how to get.
I agree. Like, I mean, she's definitely, not demonic, in terms of, okay, I'm going to celebrate having an abortion. At least, she said, no, this is not what we should be doing.
I
but
wanna make that known. There's a different level in disgust here when you're comparing how she's talking about it versus the woman making the cake.
You have a forced miscarriage, and then y'all cheering the girl. The girl literally right here blowing the candles out. Is this your friend? You just really made her look really silly. Like, this is I'm embarrassed because this is not what we're supposed to do. Nobody is happy about it. If you happy about your, like, something's wrong with you. Something is.
So, I mean, even these people who are seemingly pro it are saying, okay, if you're celebrating, basically dissolving life, in that manner, right? If you're celebrating that, she's saying that something is wrong with you. I say that those people are very demonic, right? They're very, very demonic. And so, yeah, something is wrong with them. But it's just amazing. Shout out to Coffee Pod. People ask me about podcasts that I listen to. That is definitely one of them. That is definitely one of them. He does some really good content. He has that one about what female rapper releases STD lip gloss. Now, I heard about Sexy Red's lip gloss a couple of months ago. Like, is it finally on the market? Can people finally get gonorrhea and syphilis and all kinds of other, promoted, normalized STDs from the hip hop culture now on the market? Because that's basically what people like. Sexy Red is a psyop, and I think you've heard people say it before in the conscious Black community. She is a psyop. She is for those low economic Black women to have a familiar face that look like them, right, and to promote and glorify the debauchery that goes on in the cycles of the poverty line. That's basically what her MK Ultra psyop role is in this American society. But anyways, I mean, who glorifies STDs? And then her ex-boyfriend, I think her baby daddy or ex-boyfriend is on the internet talking about why isn't she telling these dudes that she's burning them? So apparently this dude is claiming that this woman is out here hot as hell and not even telling dudes that she is hot as hell and between the legs. So that's, when you think about God talking about don't fornicate, don't commit adultery, it does kind of lends itself as a protector, right? Because, society evolves, how it evolves, people get into what they get into, right? And there's so many diseases, both created and natural, among men, that it does make sense to play it safe and not be sharing your body with any and everybody. Because it's a lot of stuff out here, and you have a lot of people out here who they don't want to get themselves tested, they don't want to get themselves checked out. Maybe it's a fear of what they're going to find out. And some of these people go out, they get tested, and they find out stuff, and then they want to retaliate against other people for the decision that they chose to make. So people are out here in these streets just doing all kinds of things. I was, looking at another podcast, a young lady talking about how she got HIV from somebody. But this is with that whole culture, that pimp culture, that I don't give a, these rappers, some of them talk about some having sex with no condom on. It's like those consequences are being promoted for a reason. Those are being promoted to the Black culture for a reason. And part of that reason is that that's what they want us to do, out here destroying each other with their little STZs that they're making up in little Fauci's lab. Sexy Red is destiny, a true meaning of disgusting. There is nothing positive about that. No, the only thing positive about Sexy Red is that for the music industry, she gets somewhat positive returns. That they've been able to kind of push her music. And again, catchphrases, you can't really take her seriously because she's just saying shit. But at the same time, it's promotable shit to be said, and the industry is going to see who buys in. And because she looked like a lot of these hood broads, they're looking at her as their hood princess, their hood champion. And so, the music industry knows that there's a market for the debauchery. What's going on, Arthur? I see you. But I'm going to get off and drink me a hotter tea. I'm gonna have to pull out the dandelion tea. Dandelion tea gets me together, and just squeeze lemon in there and just get that, because I'm feeling miserable. These kids, I'm telling you, if you guys got kids, the wintertime hits, it's like a cesspool of germs. They go to school. I got 2 kids in elementary school, and their little germs will cycle through our house for weeks. And it always gets to me last. It's almost like the germs are sophisticated. Like, here, mom, you take care of everybody else. No issues. And I'm sitting up there like, well, at least I'm not sick, you know. And as soon as everybody is like somewhat good, then all of a sudden I just start getting crappier. But moms don't get sick days. Oh, I live by the code of lemon and ginger. I have those in my diet regularly. So that's why I'm gonna pull out the dandelion tea and squeeze that lemon in there and some turmeric and just try to get myself together. I hate this time of year. And I know what it is too. It's like our immune system is changing. If you're in the Midwest in the last week or so, it's gotten like really, really cold. Like really cold. We finally we got snow in Michigan the day after Thanksgiving. We usually get it before Thanksgiving, but we got it the day after Thanksgiving. So, yeah. Are you emo? Am I emo? What? Like, what's going on with that? Yeah, I don't get. Sometimes, are you emo? Like My Chemical Romance emo? I thought the emos died off. They still exist. Haven't they transformed into something else a little bit more cyber-ish? Immune system is cycling out soldiers. Yeah, I mean, I try to stay as close to nature with, the stuff that I put in my body, but I mean, we can do so much in this society. I feel like they're just approving any and everything to kill us. I was looking at this guy who was all freaking out, and you know how they call people crazy, but even in the crazy conversations, they'll say some real interesting stuff. Like, not everybody crazy, they just passionate and emotional about how they feel. The guy's talking about, you wouldn't believe that there are so many, that there are foods that are in the American market that are banned in over 30 countries. Like, we have food, and no, I'm not a Rasta. Like, why do you people just start, like, culturalizing people? It's insane to me. It's like you see a black face and you start playing, like, assumptions with, like, the culture. I'm not Jamaican. I don't have any connection to Jamaican culture. And these are twists. They're not dreadlocks. So, again, y'all got to get more culturally informed before you guys just jump in making assumptions about people and saying shit. Because then it's just like, you open the door to offense. You open the door to offense. But, yeah, we used to get snow in October, too. It used to snow as earlier as October in Michigan. Yeah. I'm not a Rasta either way it goes. Like, I mean, I don't understand where you get Rasta from. Like, I don't even have on anything that's close to a Rasta. What is a Rasta? Like, anyways, like, what do the Rastafarians believe again? I know that they do, in some extent, believe in the God of Abraham. Some of them, so, yeah. Yes, I'm American. But yeah, they sell food in our country that is banned in other countries, and that's why we're so sick. I feel like we are not well as a nation. I think we are just a way more sicker people than other nations, and we're supposed to be a very advanced nation. It's insane how much we allow our scientists to just fabricate stuff and guise it as food. This guy was showing me, I was looking at this video, and this guy was demonstrating that he had bought some frozen cod fish, and he was able to wring the fish out. You know how fish is supposed to at least kind of tear apart? He was able to wring it out, just really tightly like a sponge, and then when he put it back in the water, it looked like normal cod. I low-key think RFK isn't going to make the changes he's talking about. You don't think so? He seems very passionate about, cleaning up the food, but my whole thing is what he's talking about is definitely a tall order, because I mean, you're talking about companies like United Healthcare is like, just even that's a fraction of the demons that are out here just impacting, the well-being of people. You know what I mean? But you're talking about the Food and Drug Administration. He's going to be taking on a lot of people who have allowed certain things to be introduced on the market in the American diet. He's going to be taking on a huge machine. I'd be interested to see what RFK does, because to me, we have too many industries that profit over Americans being sick and unwell. So we will see what RFK does. We'll see what the Trump administration does, period. People can talk until the cows come home, but the proof is always going to be in the pudding. The proof is always going to be in the pudding. So let's see what Donald Trump does. You see this shift in the media. I've been noticing this shift in the media. Different pundits who are kind of coming off switching sides. You got the fall of the black brulee media, right? And so they're trying to recruit a new black media. And I see the reoccurring faces, which are Stephen A. Smiths, your Candace Owens. I think that these people are going to be leveraged as a form of new black media, maybe. And I see Stephen A. Smith can flip-flop back and forth, right? He's like, I'm Kamala supporter, but then he was like, oh, he's going to go in and try to give it to people hard. None of these Negroes was giving it. And I ain't talking about Candace Owens, but on the Democratic side, was giving it to the Democrats before this election had an outcome. They were all sort of dancing around party lines, towing a line so that they wouldn't say anything too obvious, right? So I look at a lot of these pundits as double talking demons. You got Nick Cannon, and I'm thinking to myself, like, what is the purpose of a Nick Cannon? And what is he doing? Because Nick Cannon isn't a dumb guy, right? And I don't think that Nick Cannon will really bring Candace Owens on a podcast and make him look absolutely stupid, make him look like he's sympathizing with a very sick machine, that one machine that actually sort of tried to damage his career in so many different ways. Like, why he would have her on there basically making him look stupid, unless they're using Nick Cannon to basically give Candace Owens her black people cred again, because obviously they need people who can touch those conservatives, and Candace can do that, for the record. So it's going to be interesting to see how the transition to media plays out too, as you're seeing the media machines sort of play. And when I say media machines, don't think that these YouTubers and these podcasters who are not monetized, they're not part of a machine, right? The only way you can make that assumption is if they're not monetized and nobody's paying them for their thoughts at all, like me. But anyways, I see what they're doing with the shift of the media machine. The black brulee is sort of getting damaged. So I see Charlamagne the God, he's just going to ruin his credibility all the way around. If he don't come out saying something about Andrew Schultz and butt breaking Kendrick Lamar, he is not a voice for the culture. He's a voice for a culture. It's just not black culture. So we'll see what Charlamagne says, but I don't have too many hopes in Charlamagne actually getting on a mic and saying anything, even if he didn't like Kendrick Lamar. The whole context of what Andrew Schultz said was not comedy. Can somebody please explain to me why saying stereotypes is comedy? Like, spewing stereotypes about racial groups That's not comedy. You know what I mean? Like, comedy is like a white guy having a direct experience with a black woman, and now he's finding comedy in that experience and he's sharing it with other people, right? You know, like the shit that Andrew Schultz be saying is nothing but stereotypes. He's basically like, these are funny stereotypes and I'm going to regurgitate them looking like Hitler. You know, and it's like, what the fuck? You know, what Andrew Schultz says is not funny. It's just stereotypes. He's literally placating into stereotypes and acting like he has the boldness to say it. But if, like, even when he was making comments about black women, you know, if he would have just said, okay, I dated a black woman, this is how it was, this is how she did. If he like had some kind of personal experience to what the hell he's talking about and actually joke about the personal experience versus saying generalized shit about people, nobody would have anything to say. But again, people like Charlemagne has invited these folks into the black culture to commentate and say shit. And so now they have kind of gone wild. And I was listening to this white guy, and I guess he's a commentator in the hip hop culture too, and he has a black girlfriend. And he says, you know, I've learned a lot, you know, from my black girlfriend, and I understand that, you know, black women go through a lot, right? And I'm thinking that his black woman and taught him something other than black women die, you know, giving birth higher than any other group. It's like, what? Like, that's all you learn from your black woman is that they die. Yeah, first of all, I don't know a lot of black women who have died giving birth. Like, I mean, I'm sure that statistic exists. I just don't know a lot of them that have. But off of that, it's like, this is your excuse. This is how you're scolding Andrew Schultz, is by just saying that, you know, black women go through a lot because we die in birth rates more, and that's why we need to be heard. It's like, black women with white men, please do better. Like, just do better. Like, seriously. Or just shut them up talking about black women. Like, look, babe, I appreciate you being an ally, but at no point can you particularly go on the mic, you know, defending black women unless you have these particular talking points, you know. We gotta like really train these white men who some of our sisters are aligned with, on how to talk about our issues, or you know, they just don't chime in, honey, because he just went the whole weird way. Andrew Schultz has been saying saying some culturally tense stuff lately. Even his Indian friend felt it recently. Well, I know when he was talking about Kendrick, the Indian guy and the black dude, they were just monkey laughing. The only one that wasn't sitting up there laughing as Andrew Schultz was emasculating Kendrick Lamar was the white dude. The white dude in the middle, he was not cracking up at that shit at all. Like, I mean, and I think it made him feel more uncomfortable than them chuckling monkeys that Andrew Schultz had on the side. You know, and people like Andrew Schultz, what they'll do is they'll go grab Charlemagne or some black other person. It's just like, you know, and then they'll play the victim. Well, I don't think that it's fair that you can't talk about this group and that group. It's like, bro, didn't nobody say you can't talk about any group? You know, you can use your comedy to talk about black women if you've actually had a comedic experience with a black woman that is worth sharing to the world. But what Andrew Schultz is doing is spewing racial stereotypes about black people and black women, and he's trying to disguise that shit as jokes, and the shit's not funny. And he can't get away with it. And yet Charlemagne, people like Charlemagne have let him get away with it. And that's why he's like, I'm not going to back down. I'm not. It's like, okay, well then you can get yourself misplaced from the hip hop culture. And there's nothing that Charlemagne, who's already losing himself in the culture, can do about that, right? He can't save you from not being an inner bigot, right? Because we ain't even sure Charlemagne is all the way on our team any damn way. Because he's a double talking demon. The comedian Shane Gillis said exactly what you're saying about Andrew Schultz to his face on the show. I mean, real recognize real. Real recognizes real. All right. You know, people want to paint stuff as people being sensitive or nothing and all this stuff, but you know, Andrew Schultz is not a victim. He's not a victim of anything but his own mouth. And you're talking about buck breaking black men. Like, to me, even comics need to have some sense of, you know, consciousness about what the fuck you saying. They really should. You know, talking about and no, like when in the evolution of comedy has men joking about molesting, violating other men, when was that considered a joke? Only in the deviant world would that be considered a joke. You know, them Satanist folks. What's going on? Is it Erkin? What's going on? But you know, that's what it is. It's like people are just so deceived by some of these double talking demons. And it's just like I just read in between the line of all of it. You know, Satan wants influencers, right? He wants influencers, right? And he wants influencers of all kinds. He wants them to be sowing division with their influence in some way. So whether you are LBGTQ, you know, champion, whether you are a chauvinist, feminist, champion, right? Satan wants people consumed, you know, with nonsense. I am busy with living life, taking care of my family and doing what I'm passionate about and just doing my own thing. What are you busy with? Are you like a dog person? Like, you got to find meaning. I feel bad for people who don't have like family. You haven't created family. You haven't created meaning, right? It's sad. You said Nick Cannon is a pseudo intellectual. Nick Cannon is not a pseudo intellectual, in my opinion. I think that, you know, anybody, like when you look at somebody, like, because I think that there are intelligent people, right? There's a difference between being, you know, to me, an intelligent person, you can operate with intelligence, and being an intellectual person. You know, an intellectual person is a person that, I mean, and this is one thing that I will give, you know, Candace Owens her credit for. She has evolved herself into an intellectual. Before, she was a broken intellectual because she was just regurgitating all the shit that Thomas Sowell said, and that's what she was given. But she's definitely proven that she is an intelligent person on her own right. You know, and I would consider her an intellectual in society, right? When she's not being paid, at least, to not to talk about black people. But Nick Cannon is not an intellectual to me. I think Nick Cannon is a broken, if he's a broken intellectual. I think he's an intelligent guy. He's just not an intellectual. He's not an intellectual. What made him have more than I don't like, you know, when it comes to Nick Cannon and Future, the only thing that, you know, I don't know why these dudes went out and had multiple kids by multiple baby mamas. And, you know, if you're, you know, some people look at those things, you know, from a religious standpoint. I believe that Nick Cannon, is he a Hebrew Israelite or something like that? Like, I thought Nick Cannon associated with the Israelites. I think part of his fall from grace was that he said blacks are the real Jews, and then the Jews made him apologize and go through some re-education camps about how the blacks are not the real Jews. And then his career kind of went down from there. And I think he's just now getting it back after he's learned how to play ball and not spit those Hebrew Israelite talking points on the internet, because black people are not supposed to think of themselves as anything but Africans and slaves. You said DMX did the same thing, have a bunch of kids. I mean, who knows why these brothers are out here spreading their seeds all over the place? I mean, as long as they taking care of all them kids. I mean, I would say Nick Cannon is not the same dude as some of these dudes on the block with all these kids, and they can't even take care of them. I mean, if Nick Cannon can take care of every single kid that he made, right, then I don't have a problem with the brother out there making kids and spreading the seed, if he's taking care of everybody, you know what I mean? Some people, you look at biblical times, some of them men had, they had, concubines, you know what I mean? They had concubines, they had, their wives, and then they had little concubines, people to help them to spread the generations out, make sure that their name was preserved, right? I believe intellectual to be people who attempt to influence through intelligent dialogue. Pseudo is when they are not truly credible. Some of these people aren't truly credible because they are leeches. Like, I'm not going to say that, what makes an intellectual? Is it somebody who listens to what other people say, leech off of it, and then own the intelligence as something that truly was manufactured from their own pondering and thought process, right? I look at a lot of these people who are pseudo intellectuals because pseudo intellectuals can take critical points from that people have thought out, and they can agree with them, regurgitate them, as having some level of truth, right? But a lot of these people didn't sit down, ponder, and manufacture a lot of this stuff. I can't say that anybody that people claim to be pseudo intellectuals are really coming out saying anything different than what anybody else has said, down to your Candace Owens, right? Down to your Candace Owens. So it's like, it's one of those things where, I mean, when you hear people saying intelligent things, they can still be pseudo intellectuals because they could just be leeching off of what other people are saying, how other conclusions that other people have made that may have some factual pattern truth to them, which can't be denied, And if you stick to talking points like that, you will become a creditable person, even if you are not really the person pondering over the conclusions to get to the conclusion. So that's how I kind of look at things. I look at people, there are true intellectuals are the ones who ponder. They ponder, they are connecting the dots, they're looking at how things are, tying in, not just from like this, they're looking at multiple factors, right? Pseudo intellectuals can take their talking points, regurgitate them, sound intelligent, right? And if they have a big enough audience, they can kind of come off as, this hyper intelligent person when really they're just piecing together talking points from people who actually pondered. What about when they are able to successfully add original text to their pre-existing ideas? Many of them don't, though. Many of them don't. Many of them don't. It's like, to me, Jaguar Wright is, a person. It's interesting because recently Jaguar made a statement, about Kendrick Lamar and protecting Kendrick Lamar. And it's funny because I was questioning whether or not Kendrick was an Israelite yesterday, and she sort of co-signed this in some interview that she did recently, where she was saying that the reason why Kendrick hasn't sold his soul is because he believes in God, and he's an Israelite, and so his faith kind of keeps him protected, right? And that people like Kendrick, like, they are intimidating to, I guess, those structures, right? Because they operate on a higher consciousness. And again, people wouldn't consider, Kendrick Lamar to be an intellectual, but he is an intellectual, and it translates, a lot in his work. He's just an artistic intellectual, Who you said who was that? Jaguar Wright is clearly after the music industry that she's been around for forever. And you let her son tell it. His mom was not a very good mom, and that she might have been a prostitute to that industry. And who knows? I look at people like her, and excuse me. Wow. I must be allergic to talking about these demons because I am just going through it today. But, what was Jaguar Wright saying though? But I look at people like Jaguar as people who have been in that industry, they have seen things. I don't know why they didn't kill her. Maybe they're like, well, people think you're crazy anyway, so there's no need to take you out of the game, right? But Jaguar talks a little too much. She obviously has a vendetta against Jay-Z. And again, if Jay-Z has not fallen from grace from all those folks that protect him, Jaguar Wright needs to be worried about her own damn life instead of worried about what's going on with Kendrick Lamar. I think she admitted to being involved in that profession in the industry. I'm pretty sure she's seen a lot because she's done a lot. You know what I mean? I'm pretty sure she's seen a lot because she's done a lot, and that could be really subjective in so many different levels. You hear all these victims of these human trafficking, these elite trafficking circles coming out, talking about their experiences going through different governmental people, right? I'm pretty sure they tossed her around quite a bit, and she just Britney Spears. Imagine how many of your favorite stars are actually victims of these high class elite trafficking rings. And when they're talking about, oh, my mental health, and it's like you realize that, they've been in the devil's playground, and somebody that they trusted basically took advantage of them, and they have to basically play ball with that reality in order to be famous. I think that's basically what is going on with people like Ray J. Like, I think Ray J, not only was he a victim of the music industry, I think they pimped him out to be an abuser too. You said, what if she is on Diddy's tapes? Who knows? Jaguar Wright seems to know a hell of a lot about those Diddy parties. She seems to know a hell of a lot about a whole lot of stuff that I'm just sitting up there like, were you even in the game, for you to even know this? So she had to have been like a prostitute or something to be able to get around and have access to those elite parties to know half of the shit that she knows. You know what? I heard you say you hope Denzel Washington haven't been got. I saw something where they were trying to emasculate Denzel. I guess he was talking about he had kissed a man, and who knows? These people are they get in. I think that these people are getting to any and everybody for the money. They're just dangling money in front of people. The mission is we need to emasculate Black men. I really think their mission is they want to emasculate Black men. I think that this is what this Diddy thing was about. I think, them linking various high profile Black men that we have seen as masculine with all this little gay stuff going on, right? It's definitely you see the patterns don't lie. You don't have to be a rocket science to see these patterns are obvious, right? The proof is in the pudding. He just had that little movie. Here's the thing too. I think, didn't he just do a movie? And wasn't it about something about Rome or something? And as powerful as people want to talk about Rome, Rome was a wicked nation. The Romans were wicked people. They were wicked people. They're always glorifying, aspects of the Roman empire. The only thing good, yeah, Gladiator, yeah, they're always highlighting the Roman Empire, and it's always like the worst shit ever. But they're like, look, they're trying to make it seem adventurous and stuff. Rome was wicked. Rome was wicked. Jesus was crucified in Rome. You know, you know, so it's like one of those things where I'm like, I think the only good thing that came out of Rome possibly was Marcus Aurelius. And I don't think Hadrian was probably that bad, but Rome was horrible. It was horrible. In America, amen. America is Rome 2.0. And when those Trump assassinations were coming out, I'm like, damn, this shit is like Rome for real. They out here trying to kill folks. That's what they were doing in Rome. Secret conspiracies and taking out folks in Rome. I'm like, that Trump thing reminded me of that, like 100%. Like y'all playing the game of the Romans. But yeah, I mean, and I think in that scene he was supposed to kiss a man or something, and there was a big conversation about him kissing a man, right? And people were like, oh, they emasculated Denzel or whatever, and they said that they took it out because I guess people weren't ready for, to see that. But if you saw that show Spartacus, people were ready to see that. I mean, there was so much guy on guy. They tried to really start setting America up for the guy on guy with Brokeback Mountain. They really did. They were like, we're going to show dudes being dudes, and then they're just going to get bored and start banging each other. That was Brokeback Mountain. And it was a very hands-on movie because they really wanted to show dudes that, hey, you can still be masculine and get down with other men. That was the satanic messaging behind that movie and everything after it. So the devil is a liar, but he's also very, very busy. He's very, very busy. And he's going to show us, he's going to be planting seeds in our heads. But just to recap, because I'm about to get off of here and really get my tea. Ecclesiastes 7:1. It says, a good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of birth. And again, what that is telling us is that, the way that we exist, the name that we have right now that we carry as people, right? It's better than, fine ointment. And so basically how we live our lives, how we treat people is going to, matter, in how people receive the news of our death. There's a lot of people who are celebrating the death of this United Healthcare CEO because they perceived him to be an evil, wicked person who was part of an evil, wicked machine that hurt a lot of people. And so, although I don't advocate people celebrating the death of people, especially in that type of manner, I definitely don't feel bad for the guy either. And so, people, think how you want to think. But to me, the more you can exist as a good person, you want people mourning you. You want people celebrating you. You want people saying that person impacted my life in a positive way while they were here. Right? That's our gift that we can, that's all we can give other human beings is, can we impact their lives in a positive way while they're here, while we're here, right? Because, when we're born, we're not able to do that. We can make people happy as babies and make them smile, right? But it's not until we develop ourselves as humans, a character, that we can really start impacting other people. And from that point on, especially when we get to the age of reason, right? And we're out here screwing people over and deciding to operate with ill intent, double talking, or manipulating intent, okay? That's when you start tarnishing your name. That is when you start tarnishing your name. And I say that, to say that, that Ecclesiastes 7:1 for all my so-called Christians, right? Who are on these social media spaces, claiming that you are an advocate for truth, but you can be leveraged to bend the truth, manipulate the truth or narrate the truth in a manner that vilifies or demonizes whole groups of people. You can disconnect or connect whenever you feel like you want a chameleon in, right? That's for you. That is for you. And and that's just word 100, because again, it's not, to me, nobody's gonna care. Like I guess nobody's gonna care about a CEO who is specialized in hurting people, especially if their family was impacted by the decision making and operation of that person. And so I wouldn't tell people to celebrate the death of this guy, but I definitely am not going to be the one to scold you on doing what you do. So anyways, you guys have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful day, and I will catch you on the next one. I feel like YouTube is really suppressing my content this day. Is anybody, content creators, post-election, getting your content like epically suppressed? I don't know. But hopefully that will change, because I don't really talk about shit that's going to offend people unless you're talking about higher morality thing. And then I guess that would offend the demons in Satan's system of things, because they are always trying to prop these double talking demons in front of us. I'm watching Stephen A. Smith. I'm looking at all these liberal type people. They MAGA Bernie Sanders. Stephen A. Smith got MAGA. These are all these conservative content creators, right? And I'm thinking to myself, it's like, these people are just dumb. It's like, as soon as you agree with these people, it's like, oh, you're on my team. I guess you're okay now. It's like, you didn't forget about how they went so hard not being on your team, and the minute their team lost, now they're kind of flip-flopping over to you guys. It's like, these people, they'll just trust anything. Anyways, you guys have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I will catch you on the next one. Bye.